Yeah, that's okay. He can convict you all the way over there too.
Do you know how hard it was to let somebody else preach the after Christmas
I
sermon?
can imagine. I can imagine.
Plus my cousin's in town.
They gonna be here?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of telling them I wasn't preaching today, so.
Oh,
And their parents actually go to Bethel.
Well, this morning we're going to be again in 1 Samuel. We're going to be on chapter 21. 1 Samuel chapter 21, and just to recap from last week, we, as Brother Rick said earlier when he was getting his tea and stuff, that did you get coffee? You got coffee and tea, didn't you?
I got coffee and I got Canadian Dry.
Oh, I hear you. Well, he had talked about earlier that we were at that moment where David is fixing to leave. Jonathan and David had got a plan together to find out where Saul's heart really lied, where his heart really laid, in what direction they were going to go from there. And excuse me. So we found out that Saul was really, that bad spirit had come down upon him, and he was still trying to kill David. And so, David decided that he would hide, and whenever they had the feast and everything, David wasn't there the first day, and the second day he wasn't there. And on their plan, it said on the third day, he got all upset and everything, and was really mad at Jonathan. Jonathan got really mad at him because he realized that his father was still, what David was trying to tell him, like Brother Frank said, was true. And so he went out and he shot his arrows in the direction of the stone, and had told the lad that was out there with him that was going to get his arrows, that the plan was that if he shot the arrow at the target and they weren't beyond the target or beyond the young man, then he was good to go, that Saul did not want to kill him, and he would treat him fairly and stuff. But if he shot the arrows beyond him and he had to go look for him and stuff, then he knew that where Saul's heart was, Saul was trying to kill him, and that they would depart. And that was the fact, in fact, the truth. And David and Jonathan, we come to the part where they're embracing each other, they're crying, and they're fixing to leave one another and separate. Excuse me. And David is fixing to head out for safety. So 1 Samuel chapter 21, we'll start reading right there. Is there somebody who wants to read, or you guys want me to continue reading?
Now David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid when he met David, and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no one is with you?" So David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has ordered me on some business, and said to me, 'Do not let anyone know anything about the business on which I send you, or what I have commanded you. And I have directed my young men to such and such a place. Now therefore, what have you on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or whatever can be found." And the priest answered David and said, "There is no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread, if the young men have at least kept themselves from women." Knew women were bad. Then David answered the priest and said to him, Truly, women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy. And the bread is in effect common, even though it was consecrated in the vessel this day. So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread which had been taken from before the Lord, in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away. Now certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. And they,
You want me to continue reading there, or you good? You
up
good?
to you, boss.
You go ahead.
And David said to Ahimelech, is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I've brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. So the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that here. And David said, there is none like it. Give it to me.
Okay, stop right there. All right. So what do we see here, ladies and gentlemen? So
David's having a bad day.
Yes, absolutely. And then he heads out, and then he goes to Nob, and he encounters Ahimelech, right? Now, Nob is a city of priests, okay? The priest dwelt on Mount Scopus, about 1 mile northeast of Jerusalem. David went there for necessary supplies and for comfort and counsel. Okay, Ahimelech, a great-grandson of Eli, who is possibly the brother of, Ahijah? And it says, or Ahimelech may be another name for Ahijah. Not only is there a rejected king on the throne, but also a disqualified priest. Now, what is he talking about there when David says that the king ordered him on some business? So what is he doing there?
Liar, liar,
He's buying
pants
some
on
time,
fire.
Yeah, that's right. He's lying to Ahimelech, right? Why was he lying to Ahimelech? Does anybody know?
Like his head being cashed.
Right? It says David, fearing someone might tell Saul. Okay, he was fearing that someone might tell Saul. You know, so he was on the run, right? So he was on the run, and he comes to Nob, but he fears the fact that someone might recognize him and tell Saul, and then Saul will know where he's at. He lies to Ahimelech and says the king had ordered him on some hasty business, right? Then he does what? Go ahead.
Is it okay that David lied?
I would say no.
I would say no too, because lying is not good. Because if you're gonna lie, you're gonna have to tell another one to cover that one and another one to cover that one.
You shall not bear false witness.
Yes.
And it's actually showing a lack of faith on David's part.
Absolutely.
Because he was fearing that if the priest knew that he might refuse him. But he should have trusted God to provide either way.
Absolutely. It says right here, David, fearing someone might tell Saul where he was, deceived Ahimelech the priest into thinking that he was on official business for the king. He supposed, as many do it, that it is excusable to lie for the purpose of saving one's life. But what is essentially sinful can never, because of circumstances, change its immoral character. Okay, so it says David's lying led tragically to the deaths of the priest. So, absolutely. So you can see here where Brother Rick's coming from. You know, just because you think it's going to get you out of something, there's always a reason and a circumstance behind it that's gonna fall back.
Well, it saved David's life,
Absolutely.
but it cost the priest
Their lives. Right.
And they should have had the choice to willingly help David or not,
Right.
since
We're not.
it was going to carry such a high price.
Absolutely.
Of course, one would not expect Saul to act so unmercilessly.
I know.
Saul wasn't in his right mind, so.
That's good.
And I shut up now.
Right here where it says, it's talking about the bread. Can someone tell me why the bread was so significant?
Because that was the bread that went before God. It was supposed to be the best bread of the best. And it was there, for the temple or right there.
Right.
So, and that bread was supposed to be really holy bread. So that
Consecrated.
anybody that was sinning, consuming it, because they took that bread and replaced it with the hot bread.
Right. Right. It said the consecrated bread was set apart for the use in the tabernacle to be eaten only by the priest. Ahimelech sought the Lord and received approval when he recognized that his spiritual obligations to preserve David's life superseded the ceremonial regulations concerning who could eat the consecrated bread. So you see here that Ahimelech made what? He made haste to ask the Lord Jesus Christ about what should I do, right? And then he decided, due to the fact that David's life was in array and jeopardy, that he would save his life by giving him the bread. And now what is it talking about here where Brother Rick said something about the women? Anybody tell me?
Sorry.
Where it says it's kept themselves from the women. It says, though this was not a spiritual mission or religious journey, David and his men were ceremonially clean. Okay? So they still abided by what God had told them not to do, it says the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread, which had been taken from before the Lord in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away. Now a certain man of servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, and an Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. And David saw Ahimelech, is there not here on hand a spear or sword? So when it talks about Doeg, what's so significant about Doeg?
He's an Edomite.
He's an Edomite, plus he's the head of the herdsmen, right? It says the head shepherd of Saul's herd, who witnessed the encounter between David and Ahimelech and told Saul, had embraced the Hebrew religion and was at the tabernacle, perhaps detained because it was the Sabbath and he could not travel. So there's a link there, wasn't there? There was a link there between Saul and David, because Doeg more than likely knew who David was, right? You see where that's going? And so we see there that it says Doeg, the head shepherd, it says who witnessed an encounter between David and Ahimelech. So he saw what was going on and heard what David had said to Ahimelech. So do we know people like that now that overhear such things and then what was that? Somebody said, yes, we absolutely do.
Busybody.
Yes, busybodies. But you can get the wrong information or the wrong impression just by listening to someone else's conversation or coming into someone else's conversation, right?
Yeah, because sometimes you can't hear but one side of the conversation. You don't know what's going on the other side.
Absolutely. So you can't make
Heads or tails?
right. You can't make heads or tails or a decisive decision of what's right and what's wrong until you hear both sides, right? So let's continue on there. right there. Terry, can you continue reading right there on verse 10?
Then David arose and fled that day from before Saul, and went to Achish,
Yeah.
Achish, the king of God. And the servants of Achish said to him, Is this not David, the king of the land? Do they not sing of him to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000. Now David took these words to heart, and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of God. So he changed his behavior before them, pretended madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his slaw upon him on his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, Look, you see the man that's insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen? That is, you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence. Shall this fellow come into my house?
Okay, right there. So, what's going on here? You know?
Well, now David's trying to go into the skies.
Absolutely. He's trying to go back into hiding, right? He's trying to, why? Because it's already been told on, right? And, but he does have the sword of Goliath, right, with him. And let me go back there for a second there. It said the sword of Goliath, the sword which David had used to behead Goliath in the valley of Elah, was kept in this place for restoring the sacred vestments, or the ephod, deposited there as a memorial to divine goodness and the deliverance of Israel. Achish the king of Gath, one of the kings or lords of the Philistines for Gath. This seemed to be a dangerous place to go, since David was their greatest enemy and carried Goliath's sword into the giant's hometown. So David, he came up with this quick plan to do what? To act like a madman, like he was, like something was wrong with him, So he fled to Gath, where he knew what?
There's a lot of them come looking for him there.
Absolutely. They wouldn't come looking for him there, because why? Because they were enemies. That's one of David's greatest enemies. So David kind of like put his, opened up the door and walked right on into the lion's den, didn't he? Pretty much. But he had a plan, and he acted like he was a madman, It says, he changed his behavior. It says, David feared for his life, lacked trust in God to deliver him, and feigned insanity to persuade Achish to send him away. Drooling in one's beard was considered in the East an intolerable indignity, as was spitting on another's beard. So he drooled on himself, so that he knew that was, in that time, in that custom, that was what?
A sign of insanity.
A sign of insanity. That you know what? Something's wrong with this guy. He's deranged. And so the king was like, what?
Get him out.
Get him out of here. I don't want him. I don't want him here. And so, so therefore he sent David away. I'm trying to look right here on the latter part right here where it talks about, then Achish said to his servants, Look, you see this man is insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I need of a madman, that you haven't brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall the fellow come unto my house? In other words, he was like, you know what? Hey, he doesn't need to be here. He's not in his right mind. Take him away.
Well, they also thought that these people perhaps were controlled by evil spirits, and that if they kept them in their presence, perhaps the evil would leave and come on them.
Gotcha.
So that was another reason that they were so quick to get them away.
Right. Just like, kind of like leopards. They knew that they couldn't be around them because it might transfer from one to another.
Lepers.
Lepers.
Lepers,
Yeah,
yeah.
leopards.
Leopards just eat them.
Yeah.
That's that
Yeah.
East Texas country talk
So,
there.
so then would the leper become a leper?
Yeah, yeah. It would be a leopard.
You are what you eat, so.
Yeah, yeah, it would be a leopards. So,
That's two things David has done
right,
improperly.
absolutely. And again, the Bible tells us that David was a man of
After God's own heart,
after God's own heart.
except
fact
for
of
the
sin.
incident with Bathsheba,
Yes, yes.
which we ain't there yet.
Nope, not there yet. And then We have.
So far, it's been lots of incidents.
I know that Mary has been doing some studying, and she got to a question that she asked me, and I told her that we were going to get to the answer. So I know she's looking forward to getting to that chapter. I think she was reading in 26, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm going in now the second thing.
Yeah. So she's got a question that once we get there and we start reading through it, it'll answer her question. I'm pretty sure. So if not, then that's one that Brother Rick will
Gives you
and I
time to,
get the answer right. Yeah, she's sure ready. And I have an answer for her, and it's been all I could do to not tell her, but I wanted to see if she can figure it out. But here we see, again, David has left Jonathan, and they parted their separate ways, and he has came to Nob, and again, like Brother Rick says, there's two things that he did there. He lied, one about being in Nob, right, to Ahimelech. What did he tell him? That he was about the king's business, right? Mm-hmm. The king had commanded him to do his business and make haste, and so, and then we see that Ahimelech wound up giving him some bread to keep him alive, and also gave him the sword of Goliath, which was being kept there with the ephod. And
which the bread showed that taking care of the person was more important than the ceremonial
right,
aspects of the law.
wow, right.
Because Jesus comes back to that point
Yes.
when his ministry.
Absolutely. So, whenever David and Ahimelech are talking and everything, it talks about, David answered him and said that, hey, we are still clean, even though, we.
There wasn't a we.
Yeah, it was a he. He's still clean. It says, David answered the priest and said to him, truly women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread in effect common, even though it was consecrated for the vessel this day. So the priest gave him the holy bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread. Okay, so again, just like Brother Rick said, that just goes to show you that the priest was absolutely looking out for life over the actual sacrificial. What was it? The ceremonial. I just drew a blank. A ceremonial staging of the bread. So. Again, very short chapter and everything. You guys go ahead and we can start reading in chapter 22 if you want to, or we can stand here and.
Wait. Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh.
And we can go into where it talks about David and the 400 men that gathered there in the cave with him. Let's continue on a little bit. We still got about 5 minutes or so. You guys want to continue on? Let's speak up there in 1 Samuel chapter 22. It says, David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was disconnected gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there was about 400 men with him. Then David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, Please let my father and my mother come here with you till I know what God will do for me. So he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there for a minute. The cave of Adullam, just to give you a little backdrop on that, it says a cave near Adullam was David's refuge. Adullam, which may mean refuge, was located in the western foothills of Judah, about 17 miles southwest of Jerusalem and 10 miles southeast of Gath, which would possibly refer to 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 3. Here you can tell it's like, I guess, what is that? So about the distance between Troop, Bullard, and Jacksonville. It's wasn't very far. About 10, 15 miles here and there. So not very far whatsoever. A man could walk it in a day easily. So, or a morning probably. So what is he talking about here where he says, my brothers and all his father's house come see him? Anybody know? It says David's family members went down to Bethlehem to join David in Adullam, a journey about 12 miles. Now David became the leader of a formidable force of men united by adverse circumstances. The personal army would soon grow to 600. So all the people, all the men that were around there that were going through some issues, problems, it says that they were in debt, or everyone who was disconnected, they were either in distress or what have you.
Discontented.
Exactly. So they all gathered in the cave there with David, and David started teaching them how to become warriors. And you got to remember too, you look at where, after David had killed Goliath, he more than likely, he became what? Captain.
A folk hero.
Yeah, folk hero, and also
Captain of
captain
The
of
focal point of the soldiers.
Absolutely, the focal point of all the soldiers at that time that were under Saul's command.
But David was disheartened, depressed, down, whatever you want to call
Detached,
it. Yeah. Still trying to figure out what God had in store for him. And all these other discontented, bound people come and look to him for leadership and guidance.
Absolutely.
So
Kind of gives him a purpose.
and whether he was at his best or not, he had to step up
And lead.
and lead. Yeah.
Just like a king would.
Mhm.
Kind of like when we're
A few
during
minutes slow.
Huh?
That clock is a few minutes slow.
kind of like the story of Moses, where they had to raise Moses. His arms got tired. The people looked up to that,
Right.
so they kept his arms
Raised.
raised when they could to keep the faith and keep.
Well, we're going to stop right there then, and everything, and that way we can get into 1 Samuel chapter 22 really good next week. So you guys can read up on it and everything. I know it's hard to answer questions whenever we just started reading into it. That gives you a chance to read forth into 22, 23, and 24. They're very short chapters and everything. And if you guys got any questions or what have you, please feel free to give me a call or Brother Rick a call. So,
Why, you ain't gonna answer?
Call Jim.
what do you mean?
You ain't answer mine.
Oh, well, that's because you live with me.
Whoop-de-doo.
My special.
Oh, Lord.
You're welcome.
Brother Frank, will you pray for Mary? I mean, yes.
I think I need to pray for June.
Yeah.
Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for this message that you brought today, Lord. We thank you for this opportunity to come to your house for this, to share your fellowship and your word, Lord. We thank you for what we celebrated yesterday.
Yes.
The gift that you gave us is worth more than any gift that's ever been given. We ask now that you go into the song service and the preaching afterwards. Keep us safe as we go our separate ways and bring us back at the point of our Jesus. And we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You can take those.
I got it, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got it.
Yeah.